What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All-22 NFL show. You have Chris and Ray, and we are back again. Everybody, we just released it on Twitter. Pickpool is live. Go download the Pickpool app today where you can try to predict the NFL draft, and the pick is your win, right? The pick is in, the pick is your win. It is a fun place where you can go and predict the mock draft and win some cash prizes. Go to the App Store today, download the Pickpool app on iOS. The web version is also available at pickpool.app, and that's where you can sign up to play. But also, this is the All-22 show, right? So go to the App Store and download the All-22 Fantasy Football app today as well. It's the best place to play fantasy football, where you have full 53-man rosters, including offensive linemen, where you get to use personnel packages and have access to PFF grading and advanced stats to make decisions each week. Go download the app today. Ray, today we are going to be discussing our big boards. It was a challenge this year. I'm not going to lie to you, okay? It was a challenge because I think we did top 50s. I did a top 100, but we're going to really talk about the top 50 today. But I think if you were to ask me right now, I'd say I have about 22 to 24 guys with an actual first-round grade on them. And I think, if I know you well, yours might be even less than that.
I have 14, and I kind of stretched a little bit for 14. It's really like 13 and a half. And we'll talk about it when we get there on the big board reveal. We'll discuss that in more detail. But it is, in my opinion, a light draft on first-round players, but pretty good in the second and third round range, I think, and some positions stretch really even through the fourth in particular. So good depth, maybe not quite as top-heavy in the first round as some others, but all in all, pretty unique class. I'm enjoying this.
So before we jump into our big boards, I wanted to talk about some of the guys that just missed out on my top 50. And I think some of them are going to come as surprises. Some of them maybe not. But the guys I think I'm probably lower on than the consensus, Ravel and Azaria Thomas, the two corners that are getting a lot of hype right now. Both of those guys just missed out. I think I have them at 51 and 53. Michael Williams, I have at 52. Tyleek Williams, Donovan
Ezeraku. Go with it. Just keep going.
Yeah, I'm going to keep going. Yeah. Nick Emenwari missed my top 50, and I know a lot of people are super high on him. Which one of those guys to you missed out on your top 50, and I guess that you agree with, and why?
Well, you're very harsh on pretty much all those guys, but the concern. So, for example, Michael Williams, he made my top 50, but not nearly as high as perhaps many others are. He's in the 40s. Okay, so I'll put it that way. And the reason being, I mean, most people have him mocked in the top 15 or so of the draft. But why? I mean, he has traits. He has long arms. He has a nice frame, but he doesn't have the play strength to finish his pass rush moves, as you kind of expect. I think a lot of Michael Williams' stock for the most part is he was just sort of deemed the next man up at Georgia because he's an edge rusher who looks the part, former very high-end recruit, as you would imagine. And it was just almost as if it's like, okay, well, it's his turn. It's Michael Williams' turn. Obviously, he's one of the top guys, and he has traits to do so, but the play strength is not there. The pass rush plan is not consistent. He doesn't always attack one shoulder. He goes down the middle, so to speak, way too often on offensive players and just gets stuck. So he flashes at times, but he doesn't flash nearly enough as some other flash players do, so to speak, to really warrant, in my opinion, a top 15 grade. So I think that's more of a potential versus production pick. But even so, almost more so than some others. And it's not as if he lit it up on his pro day either. So perhaps he's someone we could be very wrong on because it's been said, or he mentioned, that he played through some injury this year, and perhaps he was never healthy, and that could explain some of the tape that we saw. But going off of the tape, it's not top 15 level, top 20 level. It just isn't.
And I think, the edge group this year is very deep, right? So Michael Williams, BC's Donovan E, that's much better. Those guys, right, kind of fall a little bit further for me. But it's a really good edge group. So it's a group to still be excited about. But there was a couple other groups when I was looking at kind of just my top 100, right? Quarterback and tackle, to me, were two positions that stood out as maybe you don't like the top of this group, but I think it's very deep, right? We talked about quarterback a little bit, where you have guys like Quinn Ewers, you have Jalen Milroe, you have a couple other prospects, the kid from Syracuse, right? Kid from Louisville. Like, there's a bunch of guys that teams are excited about and maybe interested in higher than we would have expected them. But quarterback as a whole is a group that I was higher on. And the guy for me is Dylan Gabriel, who I know I'm much higher on than the consensus. I think probably 70 spots higher than the consensus, which is a quarterback that to me has a ton of experience, plays the game really well, knows how to make decisions, goes through progressions, and has a pretty strong arm. It's just he's tiny, right? He's just a really small quarterback that doesn't have a lot of running ability, even though there is some there. So he's not Kyler Murray, right? He can't be that dynamic, right? It's missing from his game. But I think there's probably some Brock Purdy in him, where you're getting a guy that can step in and run an offense at a professional level, where some of these other guys like Jalen Milroe, you might be higher on his skills, just not so sure he can run an NFL offense today, right? So really good group of quarterbacks that I think are kind of, should be talked about a little bit more. But the tackle group for me was a big surprise. I think Wyatt Milam was a guy that stuck out to me. But the real one, and the one that I'm kind of interested in to hear about, right, is why is nobody talking about Emory Jones Jr.? He literally just missed out on my top 50, and I almost put him in just because I wanted to put his name out there because I want to see it, right? LSU tackle, phenomenal frame, just an unreal frame, right? But good movement skills too. He's not I think part of my concern with some of the previous drafts with Amarius Mims getting picked in the top 20, it's like these behemoth tackles with tons of upside are just getting a ton of hype and they get drafted in that range. I think Emory Jones has that same kind of upside frame and athleticism, maybe didn't reach as high of a level in his performance. But to me, it's if you're talking about those guys as first round picks, I don't know how Emory Jones is just getting left out and talking about as a third round pick. To me, that gap is just too big right now.
Yeah, I think the thing with Emory Jones is he's not as polished as his running mate, Will Campbell. And Will Campbell's the one who got all the press, all the accolades heading into the year. That's who all the eyes were on. And that's great. Will Campbell's fine. He's a great player, but Emory Jones just kind of got overshadowed by that. And because he does lack some polish, those traits that he does have, the frame, the athleticism, the movement skills, they show up at times, but because of the lack of polish, he doesn't maximize those traits. So he's not a dominant player like he otherwise could be. He's a very high upside player. To me, someone who should be called in the middle of round 2, in my opinion. He's got a big frame, good movement skills. Those guys just don't grow on trees, and everyone needs offensive tackles like that. So he has the traits. Another, I said the phrase with Michael Williams, kind of potential overproduction, but he was also good and productive for the most part at LSU. So a bit inconsistent, lacking some polish, but all the tools are there. And I mean, we railed against this last year because, I mean, it was just a bad pick from a mile away that you could see coming. But if Patrick Paul gets taken relatively early in day 2 from Miami, I mean, Emory Jones clears that easily for me. So there's no way I think on one hand you can go ahead and draft someone like Patrick Paul very highly, but then kind of sit there and not be hip to Emory Jones and what he could do for someone. So I think he's an early, to me, he grades as sort of a mid to late second rounder, but when you add in the traits and everything else that he could bring to the table with some development, I think he's a mid-second round guy, really the latest given the position value at offensive tackle and the scarcity of good ones out there.
If we were in week 12 of the 2025 NFL season and he was starting for a team at a decently high level, I wouldn't be surprised at all. So that's the guy that this year I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on. Just 3 more names I'm just going to throw out. RJ Harvey, running back. I was super high on him when we did our film review. He just missed out on my top 50, but he's a guy that I'm definitely high on. Sebastian Short King Castro is another guy that during film review I really liked, and I'm going to continue to like and just put his name in my hat, right? I'm going to root for that player. And then Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame. When we're talking about the linebackers in this draft, there's a lot of really talented, athletic, skilled linebackers, but not a ton that play fundamentally sound football. And Jack Kaiser is that, right? He's a little bit small. He's a little bit, on the less athletic side of the spectrum, but he's a guy that just plays phenomenal football, play after play. He can drop back in coverage. He gets to his spots really well. He makes tackles really well. He can tackle anybody. And again, Notre Dame played at one of the highest levels that they've played in a long time this year, right? So this is a team that, the captain of your defense should, is going to be a good player, right? Like he's going to be a good player. And that's exactly what I saw. He's a really good football player. Somebody, again, that I think gets drafted a little bit higher than what I'm seeing right now. And it does a really good job at the next level.
We're going to get into, you have a type and that's your type. And we'll talk about that type a bit more. I got a plan for that, but do you want to go ahead and do the reveal?
Let's do it. Yeah. Let's get it
50?
in. Top 50. So it's not the top 50 exactly. We're going to show 50 to 36. And I think what we do is maybe we read 5 at a time. So I'll read my 5 first, right? So Derek Harmon is at 50 for me, the defensive interior out of Oregon. Carson Swessinger at linebacker from UCLA is 49. Nick Scourton, the edge rusher at Texas A&M at 48. Ariante Ursary, the offensive tackle at 47. And then Maxwell Hairston, cornerback at 46.
I think I like every single one of those names more than you do, but for the exercise, at 50 for me, we have Noel Williams, the corner out of Cal, Dylan Sampson at 49, the running back out of Tennessee. I'm just going to say Oladejo from UCLA at 48, Maxwell Hairston at 47 for me. So we match there pretty much. We're in agreement there. Gray Zabel at 46 for me. So I figure you have something to say about one of those names. I think I know who the name is, but why don't you go ahead and tell me what stands out about that first 5 for you from 50 to 46?
Well, there's a couple things. There's 2 guys on your list that I didn't even get to watch, right? So the way I kind of made my big board as to guys that I wanted to watch is I kind of went top 10 on consensus big boards, PFF big boards, to see who are the players that are being highlighted, right? So, there's 11 positions. There's, however many players per position. It's a lot to get done. So how did you find Oladahu and Williams, and what do those guys mean to you? Sorry, I'm trying here, buddy. I haven't even seen these guys.
Our returning viewers, they know to stay for your pronunciations. It's fantastic. Oladejo, Big Ten guy. Just kind of noticed him early on. I love, me by now. I'm ceiling guy. I'm frame guy. I mean, 6'3", a little over 6'3", just about 260 pounds. He has a 6'10" wingspan. I mean, you see the length, you see the size for an edge rusher. He's very athletic. He's good in the jumps, broad, and that really does pop on tape. And he's not quite refined. I think he probably use some play strength there, but a raw player with all of the frame and upside that you want in a player like that who can outproduce, have a better career in the pros than in college, pretty much. I think he profiles as that type of player. But yeah, watching Big Ten football because UCLA is now in the Big Ten. He kind of flashed to me early on in the season. Noel Williams, those late Saturday nights when the rest of the house is asleep and ACC Cal is on TV. I kind of like this guy when I saw him. When you dive into the tape here, Noel Williams to me is pretty much good at everything. He can get up and press. He can sometimes kind of get shaken at the top of the route there and off man, but that kind of happens to everybody who's not a premier top flight level athlete and talent at the position. And even so, it'll happen to them too. But he's really solid. He's tough. He's always in position. He has good ball skills. To me, Noel Williams at the very least will be a very, very good quote unquote number 2 corner for someone in the league, if not more. I just don't think there's many holes or flaws to his game. Sometimes I like to do the exercise when I like a player is to look at them and go, okay, if 3 years from now he busts and he doesn't become what I think he can be in the NFL, would it be an easy answer that I could say today? So for example, if I look at a name and go, Michael Williams didn't succeed in the NFL because of blank. If I can put something in the blank right now, that doesn't mean they're going to fail, right? You could do that for most prospects. Noel Williams, I don't really have an answer for that. I can't put my finger on, here's why he won't succeed in the NFL. He's just good at everything. He's really good at everything, has good size, a good frame. He's just a damn good football player.
And then you have to explain Greg Zabel, right? I mean, I think this is a guy that's getting talked about as maybe the best center, maybe the best offensive interior by a lot of analysts. You have him all the way at 46.
So again, I'll preface this by anybody in the top 50, I think, is a very, very good football player. Obviously, they're in the top 50. We think they're all great football players to make this list. But Greg Zabel, I just think, yeah, he's very good. What more can he become in the NFL? What's left in that ceiling, so to speak? I think he's a nice, physical, tough guard. Has a great stash. It's great. He's tailor-made to be a starting guard in the NFL, and a pretty good one. I just don't see a lot of people. There's whispers about Greg Zabel in the first round, and I get it. I have, more players get drafted in the first round than are actual first-round players, because there's not always 32 first-round players. There hardly ever is 32 first-round players getting drafted in the NFL in a given year, or rather entering the NFL in a given year. So I don't think he's a first-round player. But he's good. He's good. I just don't see the plus trait that really makes me excited about drafting a guard that highly. I think he's good. If you have a need there, he'll fill it for you, and you're going to be fine. You're not going to have to worry about it. But he doesn't make me jump out of my seat like some others do.
All right. So what do you got for me?
You're going to have to explain. I mean, I have an issue with all of it, but you're going to have to explain to me Nick Scorton over Derek Harmon and Carson Schwessinger, for that matter, just as flat football players. I love those names at 50 and 49, and you have Scorton above both of those.
Well, you know how high I am on Schwessinger. I think he's a really fundamentally great football player with good size. But when you looked at his numbers, he only played like 600 snaps as a starter, right? So this is a guy with very limited experience. And typically when I see a guy with that kind of fundamental skills, it's because they played 2,000, 2,500 snaps, right? So while I'm high on him and I like what he did this year, the sample size is really, really small. So I don't want to get over my skis on a guy like him, especially when there's likely some limitations to the athleticism that he's going to have to offer. Derek Harmon. So I know I'm really low on him. I know there's a lot of people that are like, he could be a top 10 pick. But to me, if you have trouble finishing at the college level, even though Oregon played phenomenal schedule, right? But if you have trouble finishing at the college level, you're going to have a really hard time finishing at the NFL level. And I actually went back last night and rewatched my film breakdown of Derek Harmon because I wanted to just see, like, did I miss something? What am I actually missing? I don't think I am. Like, I still feel really good about him at 50. And that's just where I have him. It's right. It's a guy with great skills. He's a starting level player on a football team, but I think he's just a starting level player on a football team. I don't know if he's a plus player on an NFL football team. And if I'm taking a guy in the first round, especially a top like 20 guy, they need to be special. They need to have something that stands out where I say, this could be a fundamental building block of my team for the next 10 to 15 years. I don't see that with Derek Harmon. I see a role player, a starting role player that's going to raise the floor of your team, right? Because maybe he's replacing somebody that shouldn't be starting for your team. So in that way, he's benefiting you. But to me, that's exactly what you get in the second round of an NFL draft. Nick Scourton, there's the Joker face, or no, Two-Face, whoever it is in Batman, right? It's like on one side you see the Purdue film and you see this phenomenal pass rusher, a guy with tons of potential, that like actually rushing the passer. You turn your face and you see Texas A&M Scourton, and it's like this guy is playing the run really, really well, but he's kind of big and a little bit slow, and can he actually rush the passer, right? If you watch just one of those, I totally understand you sitting there and going, I don't know if that guy should be above Derek Harmon or Carson Schwessinger. But to me, it's like, what is there still left to unlock? Is it something about what Texas A&M was doing, right, that kind of limited the production that we were able to see this year? I'm still really high on him. I think NFL teams are going to be really high on him as well.
Okay. Want to go to 45 and up?
Let's do it. You lead it off.
All right. So at 45 for me, I'm sure we're going to have to talk about it because it's the nature of the position. But I have Jackson Dart at 45. At 44, I have Mason Taylor. At 43, we kind of touched on this already. Michael Williams. At 42, I have Caleb Johnson. At 41, Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss.
Okay, so for me, at 45 is Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. Quinshon Judkins right above him, running back out of Ohio State this past year. Kenneth Grant, defensive interior interior from Michigan at 43, Darius Alexander, defensive interior at 42. I think he played at Toledo, and Kyle Williams, wide receiver at 41. So I have a receiver in there. I think that's where like my receivers kind of jump out at this point. But for you, Ray, a couple things that stood out to me, right? Mason Taylor is one that just jumps out off the page as I'm sitting there going, wow, you're super high on him. Didn't really expect that. So you're going to have to talk about that. Obviously, again, you have to talk about Jackson Dart. And then we're obviously pretty aligned on Darius Alexander. So maybe touch on that as well.
Yeah. So let's start with Jackson Dart, quarterback. We have to start there, obviously. So again, this is a big board, not a mock draft. So this is just a pure big board as to how these players are as football players. Obviously, Jackson Dart, upside quarterback, likely going to be taken in the first round at some point in the upcoming draft next week. That's all fine and well. To me, in a just world, before the quarterback tax, this is the type of player that would be drafted mid-second round or so with some upside potential that a team takes a shot on in developing. He'll go much higher than that, but Jackson Dart to me still needs some refinement and development in his game, especially after the first read is there. We did the in-depth breakdown, the film there. Whenever he had to come off his first read, it was pretty boom or bust. Yes, he can make some plays happen, but he needs to get better at playing within structure consistently when that Ole Miss offense wasn't necessarily making things easy for him like it often does with quarterbacks and wide receivers. So there's some development to his game there, but obviously the traits are there and there's stuff to be excited about. But all in all, to me, like I said, in a just world, that's a second round player here. Mason Taylor, to me, very smooth athlete. It's rare how smooth he is at tight end. It's rare to find tight ends like that. I think the movement skills are great. They didn't really use him at LSU down the field too much as far as like up the seam on a lot of passes like that, deep over the middle. But I think he can do that. And I think when he hits in stride, he's pretty deceptive as far as you don't see even defensive backs necessarily making up ground with him across the field when asked to do so. There's some examples of that during his breakdown, as well as Trey Amos's film breakdown that we did in some of our earlier episodes here on YouTube that you can go find and check out there. So I'm super high on him. I think he's got really good movement skills and some rare traits there, and that's why he ranks so highly for me as my tight end 3 in the class. And then Darius Alexander, I think we might be too low on him. I have him at 40, and you have him here at 42, so we're aligned there. But again, the thing that kind of held him back, it's not necessarily anything that he showed as far as a weakness is concerned. It's more so we just didn't get the opportunity to see him perform consistently against top competition. And he wasn't necessarily so dominant like a Quinyon Mitchell, who he himself had some holes in his game too, coming out anyway, to where we could vault him into, say, the top 30, for example. But I think his draft process, his pre-draft process, has been phenomenal. He's checked the box, at every step of the way. This could be someone that we're still too low on, and it's just a matter of we're kind of couching ourselves because of the competition level. When 3 years from now, he could easily be defensive interior 3 in this class after, in my opinion, a Mason Graham, a Kenneth Grant, and then Darius Alexander is the next name out of everyone's mouth. And it wouldn't be a surprise at all because he has everything it takes to succeed on the interior at the next level. We just didn't get a chance to see it against top competition too often in college.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head with him. A lot of things that I really like on his tape, and I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and is great. I think I'm a little scarred. It's funny because two of the guys you talked about, I think I'm just scarred from previous years, right? Like Johnny Newton to me reminds me a lot of Darius Alexander in the way that they play and the way that they won. So we saw the struggles that he had this year. And then Mason Taylor, I see a lot of Noah Fant, and that scarred me for a long time. I'm going to keep saying that. That's kind of the comp I have there. But okay. And any questions for me on mine?
I have a ton of questions for you, and we do a whole podcast.
Not a ton. Just give me a couple.
How in the world you have Kenneth Grant at 43 overall on your big board? Let's just start there.
It's funny because I feel very strongly about where I put Kenneth Grant, that I have it right. Like it's not one where I'm like, I don't know, like, am I being overzealous here and like downgrading him too much? I don't think so. Like what I saw on tape is a guy that, does some things really well, right? He's a big bodied guy that can, hold his ground, stuff the run, has a little bit of rushing ability, But when I compare him to other guys that have similar frames from past drafts, right? We talk about Jordan Davis. I think Jordan Davis is 3 times the athlete that Kenneth Grant is. When I talk about Tavondre Sweat from last year, Tavondre Sweat had some of the most advanced hand battling skills as a pass rusher that I've seen from any defensive interior. Mind you, he's 370, 380 pounds, whatever he was, right? Like, it's just, there's different levels to this. And I think Kenneth Grant is at the bottom of that, right? And again, a guy I'm scarred. I saw Mozzie Smith. When I watched the film, it looks very similar, right? The way that they play football is very similar. Is it that he went to the Cowboys and they just ruined him? Maybe, but I don't know if I'm the team that's going to be wanting to make that bet and make that gamble that it was the Cowboys and not the player, right? And again, I see a lot of similar ways in the way that they won. I see him as a contributor, similar to Derek Harmon. I see him as a contributor. I don't see him as like a true difference maker. And that to me is a problem. And that to me is somebody you take in the second round.
Everyone, please go watch our defensive interior episode where I did the Kenneth Grant breakdown. The body lean. I just go, even the body lean, Chris. Just go check it out. If you disagree with Chris after that, you probably will. If you don't, watch it again until you agree with me and not Chris at that point. But okay,
hit the comments. Hit the comments. You know what I mean? Hit the comments at me. Like, we can talk about it. I would love to be proven wrong on a guy like Kenneth Grant, because it seems like from his teammates, he's a great player. He's a great teammate. He's a great, he's a guy that shows up for work every day. Tavondre Sweat had like character concerns. Jordan Davis, I think, had a couple of those as well. It's like, that's not the case here, right? So like, I am rooting for the person. I just don't know if the players is at that level. Want to read off next 5?
Yeah, so next 5. So I'll do my 40 to 36 here. Darius Alexander, we just spoke about him. We got him in the same neighborhood. James Pierce, the edge from Tennessee. We got Walter Nolan at 38. 37, Josh Connerly Jr., the offensive tackle from Oregon. And then 36, Derek Harmon, the defensive interior player from Oregon.
All right, so I have Josh Connerly Jr., the tackle out of Oregon, the Benjamin Morrison, the corner out of Notre Dame, Cam Scatabo, the running back out of Arizona, Jaden Higgins from Iowa, the receiver, and Andrew Makuba, the safety from Texas. Ray, it seems like we have Connerly pretty close, so that might be a good talking point. I mean, I'm shocked by your Walter Nolan and James Pierce rankings here. I think that kind of blows me away. Those are guys that I do have actual first round grades on. So I'm like surprised that you have them as low as you do. I would love for you to address that.
So James Pierce is a heck of a football player. Part of this that factored into his big board ranking for me is the reason that he's not talked about more highly in first round NFL circles. And that is some off the field stuff that apparently is loud enough for teams to be concerned with, and some teams to take him off their board. So apparently that is an actual thing there. And that factors in a bit for me because of the persistence with which I heard that sort of stuff. James Pierce, as a pure football player, probably a top 20 player in this class. I would not object to that at all. But to me, the whispers or the concerns are legitimate enough for me to have factored them into my big board ranking here. I think that's really the long and short of it. Pure football player, yeah, as an edge player, phenomenal. And he can still get drafted in the first round because it takes just one team and at a position like edge rusher, where it's at such a premium and it's so important in today's game. Someone could say, no, we could fix him, we could change him, we could deal with this. We're going to go ahead and take him at 21st overall. And that wouldn't be a shock to anybody. But I am factoring that in a little bit when it comes to my big board, the same way I factor in some of the injuries for some other players and things of that nature. I just think the whispers there are loud enough with James Pierce that I had to take it into account. Walter Nolan, we argued about this before. If you're going to take an upside player, then give me Derek Harmon instead of Walter Nolan, which I have them pretty close. So it's not as if it's like a huge difference for me, but Derek Harmon, he's got the bigger frame. If you're giving me an athletic player who can flash some strength at times, but needs to finish and be more productive, then give me the one with a 6'11", basically 7-foot wingspan, huge hands, with a great 10-yard split, and just has all the size and strength you need on the defensive interior, which is Derek Harmon and not Walter Nolan. So they're in the same boat for me at 36 and 38 respectively, because they're both the same type of player. I'm just Give me the bigger framed guy if I'm going to take an upside play on the interior.
So Walter Nolan, we'll talk about him now, right? So I hear your piece and I kind of understand certain things about it, but I think some people are just so flooded by the fact, like just overwhelmed by the fact that he was a very highly rated recruit and maybe he didn't live up to that billing, right? But when I watched offensive lineman highlights of the top offensive linemen in this draft, a lot of times when I saw them lose, I would ask myself, who's beating them? And often it was Walter Nolan, right? And to me, that sticks out, right? It's like if you are beating NFL talent consistently, you are a good NFL talent, right? And like to me, again, it's like that's the difference. Derek Harmon didn't finish plays. Walter Nolan did. So we'll just disagree on that. What do you have question-wise for me?
I'll say one thing to that end too, which could support your argument in the sense of could be a dent in mine as it relates to upside. In college football, as you know, it's transfer portal season and players are moving all over the place, right? As such, as we all know, there's been a lot of traffic in and out of that Texas A&M program. Players who have transferred out of Texas A&M to other programs, those other programs have been pretty surprised at the lack of strength and conditioning development from players coming out of there. It's possible that was a part of this too. Because it's been the case with some other players, so there could be some untapped potential there. So I will say that's about as far as I'll go there.
Wait, if that's the case, yes. What happened to Shamar Stewart? How did he become such a freak?
That's genetics. That's his parents. That's
okay.
But with a better strength and conditioning program, maybe he would be able to finish and disengage. I don't know, but he's got the super long arms, and he's just an athletic specimen. But
we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit more. For me, I could go a lot of different ways with this. Andrew Mukuba, talk to me about him because you have him at 36, which might be higher than even other people have Mukuba, but not me. So talk to me about Mukuba first. That's my first question. I probably have one more I can glean from this, but talk about Mukuba.
Yeah, I think I have him as my safety 3, and he's a player I really like in this draft. So safety out of Texas. I think he's a little bit on the smaller side, but not too small where you're like super concerned about him being on the field consistently. I love the way that this guy plays football. Again, another very intelligent player, another guy that, like Carson Swessinger, that you're going to put on the field and just be super comfortable with him there and know that he's not going to leave you out to dry at any point in time. So he's a player I really like. I think there's a slight limit to his upside in terms of like, how amazing will he be at the next level, right? Will he ever be a top 10 safety in the league? I don't know about that. I think maybe it's there for him, but I'm just not super confident about that, and it holds me back a little. You know, if you go back and watch our film episode where we broke him down, I think his ball instincts are insane, right? And I think that's super underrated part of his game. So I would love to see him be a guy that proves me wrong and comes away each year with like 5 interceptions or something like that for at the safety position. That's like incredible, right? But when I watched Cam Scadaboo's film against Texas, I saw a lot of missed tackles and a lot of maybe scared tackles from Mukuba that kind of started to give me a little bit of pause, right? And I didn't see that so much when we watched other film of him. But, you know, against bigger running backs, if you're a safety in the NFL, you still need to be willing to make those tackles and bring guys down. So is that going to be something that he struggles with at the next level? I saw that and it moved him down a bit. But again, I still feel comfortable at 36. Like we're talking about Brian Branch in the NFL draft a couple years ago, I think went around 36. So like you're still talking about a top talent in the NFL draft and a guy that is a starter at the NFL level. Mukuba's fine to me. Like he's going to be great. Just some slight concerns moved him down.
So Cam Scadaboo, when we did our film review, I wasn't sure if you were reviewing a football player or like your fight night create a character boxer, but having Cam Scadaboo at 38 kind of signals to me you have no concerns about how his game is going to translate to the NFL.
I do not. I worry about him getting a second contract and making it to a second contract, right? I think you kind of have that concern about all running backs, but I think when you watch his film, he shows you that he's not just a bruiser, right? Like he can beat guys with athleticism. He can beat guys outside. He can find the edge and take it. He has a spin move at point of contact, so he avoids some contact, right? Like he is able to do that, similar to Genty. Is he an insane athlete? Is he like one of the best athletes at the running back position in this draft? No, but there's something to the fact that he himself put an entire college football team on his back and won a playoff game. Like, that doesn't happen at the college level, right? Like, that just doesn't happen. Players can lose you the game, like mostly quarterbacks, like some quarterbacks we know, but running backs don't typically win you games at the college level unless they are so special. This guy's special. I really don't have any concerns about it. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 running back in the NFL, but I think he's going to be a very good starting running back in the NFL that I would love to see a team spell him with, like a more athletic receiving back. I think I keep going to the Giants with this, but I think the Giants, if they could get him in the 3rd round, that's a huge steal. Will he be available there? I don't know. But, you could pair him with Tyron Tracy and kind of work those two together to prolong both their careers. I think you have a really good backfield for a long time.
All right. Fair enough. Want to go into the top 35?
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, I'm going to go first because I'm excited about my 35th player we already talked about. So at 35, I have Carson Schlesinger. 34, I have KJ Winston, the safety out of Penn State. 33, I have Shamar Stewart. 32, Donovan Ezeuruaku. And 31, Shedeur Sanders.
Ooh, okay. I have Greg Zabel, the offensive lineman. Don't know where he's going to play at the next level, but I have him at 35. Tate Ratledge at 34, the interior offensive lineman as well. Xavier Watts at 33, the safety from Notre Dame. Trey Harris at 32. And Trey Amos at 31. So, Ray, let's kind of break it down a little bit here because we talked a little bit about some of these guys already. So I don't necessarily need to hear your take on Schlesinger. I think I know what you think about him. And I think we're probably on the same page. Same with Ezeuruaku. We talked about him a little bit. So it's really and Stewart, let's save him for when we get to him on my side. But like KJ Winston, I want to hear your take because he's a player I really like and just missed out on my top 50. And then obviously you need to address Shedeur at 31.
So the thing about KJ Winston is if he had not gotten hurt this year, I think there's absolutely no question about it that he would be in the conversation for safety 1. And to me, the question would be if I just simply liked him more than I'll save the name for later. But I think that's really all there is to it. I think he was on a phenomenal trajectory until he hurt his knee heading into week 2 of this past season. He has the frame. He's a great tackler. He's physical. He has instincts. He comes downhill pretty hard. He could be a little over-aggressive at times, sometimes a little wild. But again, that's from the film of a young first-year starter at safety. And, I mean, he played 1 full game in 2024 against West Virginia, and that was phenomenal tape. If he had just continued on that path, I think he'd be a clear first-round player in this class. Obviously, you have to see how he responds to the ACL injury and, how he eventually comes back from that. But outside of that, he has what you're looking for frame-wise, athleticism-wise. Kid's tough as nails. He actually tore the knee in practice and gave it a go that next Saturday during Penn State's game against Bowling Green before obviously being taken out because he tore his ACL. But he gave it a go on a torn ACL on a college football field. So this guy is tough as nails. He has what you're looking for at safety. Cerebral player. Again, it's just a matter of how does he respond to the injury. If he does positively respond to the injury, I think someone's getting an absolute steal here. So that's Winston. For Shedeur Sanders, again, all the talking points as it relates to Jackson Dart apply here. The reason I have Sanders above someone like Dart is, again, I think the ball placement from Shedeur Sanders consistently is just flat out better. He doesn't necessarily have as live of an arm as someone like Dart or Ward or some of the other quarterbacks in this class, even a Kyle McCord for that matter. But guy operates an NFL offense. He's just consistent with his ball placement over and over again. He does have the athleticism to pick up yards on the ground, has to protect himself a bit better at times. But I think there's a lot there to work with where the ceiling may be capped. I don't think we'll ever be talking about Shedeur Sanders as a top 8 to 10 quarterback in the NFL throughout his career. But if he maintains a starting job, I think this is someone who will be the 15th best starting quarterback in the NFL for 7 or 8 years. There's other things you have to factor in with Shedeur Sanders, given that he is Shedeur Sanders and he's, Deion Sanders' son and all that other stuff that comes along with it and the production crews and all that. That's for, these teams to figure out where that ultimately lands him on their board. But from a pure quarterback standpoint, this is a relatively safe player who has great ball placement and can operate and run your offense and won't put the ball in harm's way too often. And it just has to work on taking sacks. And then again, all the other stuff that surrounds him will have to be factored into the equation. But you put that all together, to me, that's a, top 30, just missed on the top 30 of my big board. And someone I could see, again, in a just world, taking in the late first round because they might want that 5th-year option for him at quarterback and see if he can be their franchise guy of the future.
So Winston, I get what you're saying. I think there's a lot of projection on Winston's film because of the injury. We didn't get to see the full season. I had some concerns with his previous film that we did watch, right? Where sometimes he was taking poor angles to tackles. He wasn't necessarily taking on blocks the way I expect a player like him to. And he has the frame to do it, right? I think frame-wise, he probably has the best frame of any safety in this draft. So you're betting purely on upside, and I like that. I just think 34 is a little rich considering we don't know what that injury is going to do to him long term. And then Shedeur, I agree with everything you said. A couple things, right? Like, if you would have known what Teddy Bridgewater would be before his injury, right? Like, kind of throwing like 18 to 20 touchdowns a year, game manager kind of quarterback, good quarterback, but not necessarily great. I think people were waiting for Teddy Bridgewater to reach that mark where you're saying this is like a top quarterback in the NFL, and he never did, right? The injury was brutal. But we're in year 12 of his career, I think, and he's still getting jobs, right? Even with the injury, even with some of the bad stuff that we saw, like, he's still getting jobs. So I do think that there is kind of a similar projection there. And I think people would probably take, Teddy Bridgewater pre-injury in the first round because there was a lot of upside to the game that he was playing. So I'm with you. I think he's around that range. I have him at 22. People can see it, so I'll just call it out. So there's not a huge difference in where we see them. It's like the end of the first round kind of guy. A guy that I still agree with you. I take a bet on. But do you have any questions for me on mine?
I can make a statement, but I'll stay with the questions for now in the sense of a couple guys on this list didn't make my top 50. Probably the most notable one, so I'll give you the opportunity to talk about him, even though we kind of touched on him a little bit, is Xavier Watts. I had him outside of my top 50. Probably had him at about 52, so he just missed. And like I said, this is your type of guy. To me, the way I see it, he's a good football player, takes good angles, he kind of does the right thing, but he's not necessarily, you talked about KJ Winston's frame. That is not Xavier Watts by any means. The athleticism and upside isn't quite that of some of the other top names, whether it is a Winston or a Makuba, for example. So talk to me about him. You got him at 33, which, again, in a just world is just outside of the first round.
Yeah, and I think that's where he stands and where I would have him is just outside of the first round. I don't know if I'd feel great taking this guy as a first-round pick, so I will be clear about that. Because of the athleticism that you kind of point out, maybe isn't as high as some of the other safety prospects. His frame is also maybe not at that same level. I think he's a little bit short, but he's got a good build, right? He's a thicker guy. I don't think he lacks like speed. I think I showed a play in our breakdown where he rushes down Travion Henderson from behind and is able to bring him down. Like you have to be a good athlete to chase a guy like that, right? Like you have to be. But I think Notre Dame just had really fundamentally good football players on their defense this year. And that's why they were such a problem for people, right? And there isn't anybody right on that Notre Dame defense on this list that you're saying is a top 10, 15, 20 pick. But Xavier Watts, Jack Kaiser, like there's a bunch of good football players on that defense that I would take shots at, second, third round and feel very good about. He's one of those guys, right? He's fundamentally a sound football player that is aggressive. He's eager. He is constantly going to the football, right? He doesn't give up on plays, and he doesn't let his athletic limitations limit his play style, right? Because he's so intelligent, he overcomes that. So he's a player I'm very high on, and I would definitely feel good about taking early first round. I'm surprised you didn't ask me about Tate Ratledge, and I have to talk about him. So even though you didn't say anything, I'm going to do it. But Tate Ratledge to me is a player that just I couldn't understand why nobody was higher on him, right? Like I didn't see anybody else have this take that Tate Ratledge is a borderline first round pick player. But to me, when I watched him, and again, it's like when I'm watching NFL talent on the defensive side, who are they losing to? They were losing to Tate Ratledge. Like, the plays that I saw them lose were to Tate Ratledge. And that to me sticks out. And I say to myself, this guy's going to be able to do that to NFL players, right? That's important. And not only is it important, like for that reason, what was the biggest thing the Bears and the Vikings and a few years ago or last year, the Panthers did when they had concerns about their offense? They went and rebuilt the interior of their offensive lines, right? To get back to a place that's comfortable. And any offensive lineman on the interior that has reached free agency lately, that is considered on that higher end of the elite side of offensive interior players, they get the bag, right? So, like, to me, NFL teams are obviously starting to value interior offensive linemen a little bit higher. So I'm going to do the same thing, right? Like, if Tate Ratledge is a guy that I think can be a very high level offensive interior player at the next level, I'm going to rate him highly, right? And to me, that lands him at 34. So a player that I'm very, very high on. But let's keep it going. Read me your 30 to 26.
He's about to be 24 years old. I would hope he's beating the guys across from him. 30, I have Jalen Walker out of Georgia. We're going to say linebacker. I'll say that. 29, Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. 28, Malachi Stark, safety from Georgia. 27, Will Campbell, the offensive lineman out of LSU. And at 26, I have Tyleik Williams, the defensive interior player out of Ohio State.
Okay, 30 for me is Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama. Jackson Dart at 29, quarterback from Ole Miss. Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas at 28. Jalen Walker at 27. Ray just referenced him. Will Campbell is at 26 for me, another guy Ray just referenced. So I think those are the two guys we should talk about here, right? I'll just address really quick Jackson Dart. So same notes as you. Really, good upside to his arm. I think he's got some athleticism that is being a little bit underrated. But he's a guy that didn't really take easy wins, right? And I think at the NFL level, NFL teams make you pay when you don't take easy wins, right? And that's going to create a lot of turnovers. So quarterbacks that don't stick in the league are usually the ones that just can't limit their turnovers, right? We see that with Will Levis this past year and other guys. So I kind of see a similar range for him there, right? Will Levis was, I think, 33rd pick in the draft. This is a little bit of a weaker class, so 29 just kind of felt right for me. But okay, let's talk about Will Campbell first, okay? Most people's offensive tackle 1. I don't think either of us see him as a tackle, but I had major concerns when I watched his film. And it's funny because I said this on the pod. I doubt Sam Mons watches our podcast, but one thing he just posted on Twitter a few hours ago was, like, when you watch defensive players from this draft win, they always have a win against Will Campbell, right? And I think that there are limits to what he's able to do. Yes, there are some good stuff. He knows how to hand battle. He's smart. He always gets to where he's supposed to be, but he also loses on second efforts almost every time, right? And to me, like, I can't have a tackle, especially a left tackle on the blind side of my quarterback, that makes those kind of mistakes, right? Or is that athletically limited? Just can't happen for me, right? So, like, I have him as an inside guy. I probably have him at center, and I think he can have some very Graham Barton-esque upside at center, but that's really what I see. I don't see a lot more than that. So do you agree with me? Did you have a different take? Is there a different reason you had him falling?
Yeah, Will Campbell, it's so tough because he's a tough football player. He's smart. You get why coaches love him, and you get, I guess, why people were high on him heading into the year, because he is a good football player. Let's just start there. Again, we talked about this. You're in the big board. You're a good football player, a darn good football player. And if you're in the high 20s, you're a darn good football player. But we talked about Will Campbell, or a lot of people talked about Will Campbell. And to me, I compare him to like a welterweight boxer 20 years ago, where to me, Will Campbell's the type of player where if you are worth your salt, if you're a pass rusher that is of value to your team, you beat Will Campbell. You get the better of Will Campbell. Last year, Jared Verse. Oh, it was a big fight. Him and Will Campbell. What a matchup. Jared Verse beat the hell out of Will Campbell last year before he entered the draft. He just did. That was just straight up. Will Campbell showed he was tough because he hung in there while taking a beating. That's basically what it was. But Jared Verse showed his power and everything else in that matchup. And then when you watch Will Campbell this year, you see the limitations. the short wingspan, the short arm length, whether it's exactly 33 or if it's below, it's a problem at tackle. And you notice when we did the breakdown against, I believe it was South Carolina, you see this consistently where teams start to figure him out. As the game goes on, they become more in tune with his limitations. If you give him a hard fake to the outside and then you cut and cross face to the inside, he doesn't have next level agility to be able to cut you off. And he doesn't have the length to stop you either, or the surface area to where it is an issue for you to go around, because he lacks that wingspan. He lacks that length on the outside. So when he's on an island with space to work with, if you're an athlete at the edge rusher position, you can beat him there. We talked about how someone like Verse beat him with power. If you have plus length, you can beat him with power. We saw Shamar Stewart really lock out and knock him back multiple times in their matchup this past season as well. So the limitations, it's not that he has short arms and has a small wingspan. It's that his short arms and small wingspan show up on tape, and he doesn't have Penny Sewell level agility to make up for that, or Rashawn Slater balance and agility to make up for that and compensate on an island. So to me, he's a 6 out of 10 tackle. If he could be a starting tackle in the NFL for 9 years, 10 years, but he will be tackle 33, 34. He'll be a mid-level tackle in the NFL who you hang your hat on dependability and traits. You don't hang your hat on him, or not traits, rather, dependability and reliability. You don't hang your hat on his traits and the ability to just shut down, Myles Garrett if you're going up against the Browns in a given week or whatever the case may be. So to me, he does profile better on the interior because of that, because he is tough. He can drive back. He can dig people out of the hole in the run game. But you didn't see that much on his tape as far as, playing the interior. So it's a projection at that point, and that's what holds him back. Intangibly, one of the best in the class. But the tangibles matter, and they show up on his tape, and that's what holds him back.
Yeah, and it's funny because, I know it seems shocking to have him at 26 and 27, but those are the same things I like about Greg Zabel. Those are the things I like about Xavier Watts, right? We're talking about that tier of player in my mind, right? And that's where he fits in, and it feels right to have him there. Jalen Walker's another guy, right? I said we both are probably 20 spots, 25 spots lower than the consensus, not 25, 20 spots lower than the consensus on Jalen Walker, because to me, this is a guy I definitely want on my football team, but maybe not a guy that's going to be a standout and wins no matter what. But I have him at edge 5, right? But is he an edge rusher at 220 pounds at the next level that you're going to consistently put out there and just expect to beat NFL tackles? Maybe not, right? Maybe not. Maybe he's more rotational, and that's okay. That's okay. Or maybe he's playing some snaps at edge, maybe third downs at edge, and he's playing first and second down more as a linebacker. Maybe that's okay, right? I think his spy skills are fantastic. Some of the best linebacker spy I've seen, it's because he's an edge rusher, right? And he knows how to get to a quarterback and chase him down and what angles he needs to take to do that. So I like those aspects of his game a lot. And I like that he's relentless as an edge rusher. But do I like him as a surefire edge rusher that I could put down there as a top 10 pick and expect to win every down? Absolutely not. And do I see enough on tape where I say I'm comfortable putting him at linebacker every down because I think he could drop back in zones and he can run, he can take the right angles in the run game? No, I don't. I don't think that either.
I said it earlier this episode, right? If you take a player and can finish the sentence 3 years from now, this player did not work out because fill in the blank. This player could fail because does he have a natural position? Does he have a true home in the NFL? He's an edge rusher in a linebacker's body. And linebacker is such a nuanced position where, yes, he has all the athleticism and twitch in the world to where if he can master the nuance of linebacker, he could be a top linebacker in the league, of course. That is a huge if. That is probably the biggest developmental if of any position outside of quarterback in the NFL when it comes to everything else that goes into being a successful linebacker. So again, if you're an edge rusher in a linebacker's body, can you hold up and how often can you be out there at that position? And if you're going to moonlight back and forth and you don't have a true home, might you be done a disservice by your future team in the NFL? because you can't really become a master of a certain craft. So that's the concern with Jalen Walker I have. So great player, great athlete. You have to have a plan for him. And there's always going to be that question of, can he master linebacker?
And you ask why he fails, right? It's because the Panthers take him at 8 and they have so many holes on their defense and they expect this one guy to take care of them all, right? And how many times have we seen that? Isaiah Simmons, right? Like we see it too often. These kind of hybrid guys get put in a situation that's just really difficult to be successful in. And I don't want that for him because, again, I think he's like a work hard player and a guy that I'd want on my team. So I'm hoping for the best for him. If he goes to the Bears at 10, I could see that maybe working out for him because they don't have so many needs and they can use him in the rotation. So I wouldn't hate that if he does end up getting taken in the rounds, in the picks that people are kind of saying, but we'll see. So 25 for me is Kelvin Banks. 24 is Walter Nolan, the defensive interior we spoke about earlier from Ole Miss. Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver out of Ohio State at 23. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback Colorado at 22. And Travion Henderson, running back Ohio State at 21.
All right, I'll go 25, Travion Henderson, running back out of Ohio State, so we have him pretty close there. 24, I have Omarion Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina. 23, Mike Green, the edge from Marshall. 22, Emeka Egbuka at Ohio State, the wide receiver. And then 21, I have Savon Ravel. So we have a decent amount of matching, similarities there on this portion of the big board. I think we're starting to zero in on a certain tier here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked about earlier how Ravel did not make my top 50. So how do you have him How do you have him up here at 21?
Because he's darn good. He's big, he's fast, and he can carry routes across the field. He's got length. He can be physical at times. Sometimes he's a bit over aggressive, which, okay, fine. It happens. But even coming out of East Carolina, when you put on the Michigan tape, he was darn good versus Michigan in 2023. That's future national champion Michigan at that point in time. And he acquitted himself very well there. He can be physical in the run game at times. I just love the fact that he's a big corner who can carry routes across the field. So I have Trey Amos a bit lower. We did a breakdown on Trey Amos as well, doing some corners. And in that episode, I was able to see Savon Ravel carry a deep over route across the entire field and close on the football and make a play for an interception there. Whereas someone like Trey Amos, who's also a big physical type of corner, didn't have that same level of athleticism to close on someone like Mason Taylor, who's a tight end coming across the field there. And so that high-end athleticism shows at times for Ravel. There's two questions that I have about Savon Ravel, which is first, the injury. He also is coming off of a major knee injury. So you have to see how, what the medicals are on that and what the doctors say and how he ultimately bounces back. Second is age. I believe this is another sort of 24-year-old prospect heading into this class. So this is an older player. And with that always comes the questions of what's left. What is he already near or at his athletic peak? And there's not much more blood to draw from that stone. Those are the questions that I have going in with him that kind of actually keep him down. Because otherwise, I think if you showed me his tape and he was healthy and he was 20 and 21, he'd be probably 10 spots higher, if not more, because I'm that big of a fan of his game. But he's got some questions. Again, he could be Terrence Newman, who was drafted at 24 and played for like 18 years. I think it was more like 15. But again, the age and the injury are the questions I have with Ravel.
I get so worried in these drafts when we talk about corner prospects with upside because every year we see these guys get drafted maybe 10 spots earlier than I would take them. And they're good role players, right? But they never really achieve like this top status, right? I feel like corner is kind of one of those positions, unfortunately, where we kind of know what we get, right? Like when you're taking Patrick Surtain, when you're taking Sauce, when you're taking other guys at that level, you're going to get one of the top corners in the NFL. And then when you get a guy like Ravel, you're getting a guy that's going to be a role player on your team. And you hope that one year he has some great upside and achieves this mark that you have for him. But often it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen consistently, right? And that's just the nature of the position as well. So like for me, I don't think I'm ever taking one of those guys in the first round. If they fall to the second round, I'm going to jump all over them. And I'm going to just take more risks later in the draft at corner and hope that one of, the three guys I take from round 4 to 7 pan out and become a guy that I wanted Ravel to be anyway.
Yeah, I'll just say Deron Bland in the 5th round doesn't happen very often. I feel like what I described to you, though, is, and I didn't say it earlier, but Trayvon Diggs, would that be fair to say? Big, fast, makes plays on the ball, over-aggressive at times?
Diggs had some really special ball skills, and I'm not saying Ravel doesn't, but it's not that level. So it's good. It's not that good, right? And even when you look at PFF grading for Trayvon Diggs, like he had one good year, right? Like the other years, it was a lot of hot and cold, right? And that's what you got, right? You got pick sixes. You also got Burt for touchdowns. At corner, that's like, do I really want that on my team? Do I want to, or I want it on my team, but do I want to spend a high draft pick on that? To me, the answer is no.
I think Ravel is a better version of healthy. Ravel is a better version of Diggs, or could be. I think he could be more consistent in coverage. But to your point, I don't think he has that type of ball skill capability. I mean, that is rare. You have to give Diggs his flowers on that. His ball skills are rare. Diggs is also coming off of injuries too, by the way. So we'll see how he responds from his knee injury. But that's not what this episode is about. Tell me about Kelvin Banks.
Yeah. You know what? I'm happy you asked because that's the guy I wanted to talk about. So I feel like we met on that. Kelvin Banks is a very solid prospect in terms of if I need an offensive tackle today and I'm picking at the end of the 1st round, Kelvin Banks is a guy that you can draft and start at tackle. And he's going to be a starting tackle for you, right? Like there's not going to be a game where you're like, I don't think this guy's got it, right? Like he's got it. He can do it and he can be good. But there's a limit to how good he can be, right? From an athleticism standpoint, there's a limit. From a conditioning level, unfortunately, there's a limit. This is a guy that he's going to win 3 reps and then lose 2 real bad, right? And that's a concern for me at the next level. But again, I like him. I think he's got NFL size. I think he has NFL strength. I think he has NFL athleticism. My favorite thing for him might be his grip strength, which at tackle I really covet. So I like that a lot. But does he get a little sloppy at times because he's a little out of condition, right? Like, can an NFL team break that into a player, especially a player that played at Texas in the heat? I don't know. And that concerns me a little bit. But again, it's like, it's a good player. It's why he's in this range with guys like Jalen Walker and Xavier Watts and Tate Ratledge. It's a guy that you're going to put on your field and start for 10 years and feel really good about, but is never going to be an elite player for me. Just won't happen.
Man, in a just world, you kick that guy inside to guard, and he just mauls people for a decade. But time for the top 20?
Time for the top 20. Let's do it.
All right, you go first.
James Pierce at pick 20, at spot 20 from Tennessee, the edge rusher. Mike Green at 19 from Marshall, the edge rusher. Matthew Golden, the receiver from Texas at 18. Omarion Hampton, the running back from North Carolina at 17. And Malachi Starks, the safety at 16. So read yours.
Yeah, so Kelvin Banks at 20. So we're pretty darn close there, right? I'm a little higher on that because I still hold on to hope that someone kicks him inside to guard. 19, Luther Burden, a receiver from Missouri. At 18, Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas. At 17, I have Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama. And at 16, Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. Chris, what are your gripes?
So, I mean, Kelvin Banks, we have in the same range, it looks like. So I don't have any gripes there. I definitely have a gripe on Burden. I have him, as you can see, top 10. So we're going to have to talk about that. Jahdae Barron, I kind of spoke about a little bit earlier, but a guy that I think is good. I think he's more of a role player, like a starting level role player than a difference making player. So I think you have him too high. Same with Tyler Booker. I don't think Tyler Booker has all of the juice that is getting talked up about him right now. I think he's a good offensive lineman at the next level, but limits to his athleticism kind of limit the schemes that you could even put him in, right? And then Colston Loveland, I know we only have him 3 spots different, but like, for me, it feels like there's a big difference between 13 and 16 in an NFL draft. So I feel like you might be a little low on Loveland. So I said a lot. I'll let you address each of them because we're getting into the part where like this stuff really matters in an all-22 draft. This is your 1st and 2nd round.
Yeah. So Luther Burden, to a lesser degree of James Pierce. Some of the whispers about him being a wide receiver. He's a wide receiver. I think he is darn good. I like the way he tracks the ball. I feel like you're going to go on a longer diatribe about that when we get to your top 10, which is fair. I could totally see why someone loves Luther Burden. That is not a shock to me at all. Jahdae Barron, I love the catch technique. I'm a big fan of this guy's game. Whatever, you can call me a sucker for how he plays. If I'm gonna be wrong about Jahdae Barron, then I will be wrong about Jahdae Barron. I'm a big fan of just how he plays the game at his size, his headiness, his willingness to step up and make plays in big moments. And he's just another one that's kind of just always around the football. So him and Makuba, 2 big losses for Texas.
Huge losses. But like, so if Barron in the NFL draft gets picked 15th, right? My strategy, just for those out there who are playing all 22 and have to think this way too, right? Maybe you were also down on him. Split the difference. If he gets picked at 15 and you had him at 25, if pick 20 is your pick and you need a corner, to me that makes sense, right? I wouldn't say go draft him at 15 just because the NFL does, right? Don't pick him at 20 don't stay at 20 thinking you're going to get a corner if you need one, right? So like that's kind of how I play things. So Barron is one guy that I agree with you. Like there are a lot of good things about his tape that I could be wrong with, right? Like I think there's a lot of people out there that are thinking this could be top 2 corners in this draft and worthy of a top 10 pick. And if that ends up happening, I'm okay being wrong on this. And I'm okay trying to split the difference and draft him in a place I'm comfortable. But go ahead, continue.
I can continue on Jahdae Barron all afternoon, but I think I made my point. I'm a big fan of his game. I think the catch technique, the ability to drive, he could play outside, inside. The last thing I'll say on that is that if he's a nickel because of his size, okay, that's 70+% of snaps in most defenses in the NFL anyway, week to week. So that's essentially a starter anyway. So it's still a starting corner just lined up in the slot. Colston Loveland, sure, okay, that's fair. It's nothing against Loveland that held him back other than I just like the other players I have between 16 and 13 just a little bit higher. I like those guys a bit more.
Well, I'm saying this. I called that out specifically because you said at the beginning of this that you had a first round cutoff at, I think, 14. Which means that you do not have Colston Loveland as a first-round pick. You don't have a first-round grade on Colston Loveland.
No, he's a top of the second-round player for me. And the only reason why he's not a first-round pick for me is because I think yards after catch is such an important part of today's game. And that is the one thing that's missing from his tape that the other top tight ends in the NFL nowadays have. Kelsey, prime Kelsey, great after the catch. Tyler Warren, top tight end in this class, fantastic after the catch. Brock Bowers, phenomenal after the catch. That's the one element of his game that's missing that just he's a very top of the second round guy for me just because he's missing that element, but he's also young. And, maybe that's something with some additional play strength and such that develops a bit more later on. But that's what holds Loveland back for me and keeps him, again, at 16. So we love the player, but that's what keeps him from a first round guy for me.
I definitely have a first round grade on him because there's so much that he does on a play to play basis that is so technically sound and so advanced in terms of just play intelligence that I don't expect from a junior in college, right? That I see guys entering the NFL as year 5 tight ends that don't have anywhere near the advanced skills that he has, right? So when I watched him, I agree with you. Maybe there's some slight limitations to the athleticism and what he can do with the ball in his hands, but he makes up for that in spades, in my opinion, and how well he plays the tight end position fully, right? All the aspects of it. So I really like him. What questions do you have for me?
I guess I'll ask you about Malachi Starks. Let's just do that. You have him about 10 spots higher than me. And I mean, it's no secret here. Makuba is my top safety in the class. You see him here at 13, which means I have a first round grade on him. We talked about him already, but you have Starks above Makuba. You talked about Makuba, but tell me why you like Starks so much.
Yeah. So Brian Branch is the guy that I compared him to when we did the film breakdown. I think there's a lot of aspects of his game that match that style and play, where this is a guy you could line up all over the field. He can take snaps at true corner. He can take snaps in the slot. He could take snaps at free. He could take snaps at strong. He can do all of those things. And I think he does all of them really, really well. Besides all of that, this is a guy that if you were worried, right, Brian Branch fell in the second round because he wasn't a great athlete. So maybe you're worried the reason he looks so much like the player is because he also has limitations to his athleticism. And then I go to myself and I go, oh, he went to the combine and blew it up, right? Absolutely smoked the combine. So I feel really good about taking him. And I'm like, to me, Brian Branch, if you told me Brian Branch plus a ton of athleticism was available at pick 16, I'm jumping all over that. I really like the player.
All right. I won't argue too much with that. I like that. You could tell he's comfortable with his athleticism too, with the amount of trail technique he does as a safety. He's comfortable in space and in the deep parts of the field. He's not worried when you drag him into deep water. So I'll give him that. But I guess it's time to advance to the top 15, and I'll just start because I got the big name right off the bat here. At 15, I have Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami. At 14, Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. At 13, the aforementioned Andrew Makuba from Texas. 12, Jihad Campbell. And 11, Armand Membu from Missouri.
We're going to have some gripes. I have Shamar Stewart at 15, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. Will Johnson at 14. You mentioned the corner out of Michigan. Colston Loveland at 13, the tight end from Michigan. Donovan Jackson at 12, the guard tackle kind of hybrid from Ohio State. I have Mason Graham at 11, the defensive interior from Michigan. So we have a lot to talk about here, buddy, because Cam Ward, if you are a team on the clock, what you're telling me with your rankings, right? If you're a team like the Giants or you're a team like the Browns and you have a need at cornerback and you have a need at safety, that you're going to take Andrew Makuba over Cam Ward. That's what you're telling me.
No, I'm just telling you they're better football players right now than he is. This is no position. This is no positional value. This is position agnostic. If there was a badass kicker in this class, if Brandon Aubrey was in this class, he'd make my top 50 big board because the guy can nail 68-yard field goals as if they were 48-yard field goals. But this is not taking position value into account. And to me, as a pure football player, Jihad Campbell's better at linebacker than Cam Ward is at quarterback. And the thing with Cam Ward is
safety. Yep.
The thing with Cam Ward is the ability or rather the propensity to put the ball in harm's way that's still there. Man, it holds me back from ranking him too high because that just welcomes a bust factor into the equation that otherwise wouldn't be there. Because I think this is a mentally strong football player. I think he can process pretty well. He's got good athleticism. He has good zip on the ball. He can make good throws. He's not, and this probably goes into the propensity a bit, he's not afraid to throw the ball into tight windows and step up and make plays when needed. But after, 5 years in college, he still puts the ball in harm's way and at times inexplicably. And oh boy, that's really tough. And that invites a bust factor that otherwise shouldn't be there for a player of that talent. So that's why I have him at 15. And as you noted, makes my cutoff. That is a big flashing, blinking red light for me at quarterback that I just have a hard time getting over. I can't grade someone as a first-round quarterback who does that as often as Cam Ward does. And he's gotten away with it too. It's not just the interceptions you see on highlight or rather low light reels. He puts it in harm's way and sometimes has gotten away with it. And in the NFL, it's harder to shake that habit than it is in college. So for him to still have that, it scares me.
Sure. And I mean, I think what you're telling me is that if you hold kind of like the first overall pick in a fantasy league, like you should be selling, right? If you're not sold on Cam Ward, you should be taking an offer for him and selling that pick. But I also baited you with that answer a little bit because Jihad Campbell at 12, to me, from a purely positional agnostic standpoint, I don't know how you have him that low. Like, to me, that is one of the elite players in this draft at the linebacker position. Why is he so low for you?
Because he's beat up. It's pretty much the long and short of it. Again, it's risen to the level of me having to factor it in similar to like James Pierce, except we're not talking about character here. We're talking about bum shoulder, labrum injuries, coming into the NFL already with a bruised and beaten body. And how long can he hold up in the NFL, or can he hold up in the NFL, or is his body already breaking down? That's it. If you could guarantee me full health and I get 100% Jihad Campbell for years, he's in the top 8. I'll say he's definitely in the top 8. He's probably in the top 7, just looking at my list here. So, but the concern is there enough that I had to factor it into my listing, and that's why I have him at 12. So still a first-round grade, still the number 1 linebacker on the board easily, but I bumped him down a little bit for that.
he's somebody that I have a prediction to make because I have the 49ers at pick 11 taking Jahad Campbell. This is a team that consistently wants those game-breaking linebackers, right? They've done it for years. Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, the guy that just left and went to the Broncos. I'm blanking on his name, but like this is a team that just wants those type of players, and they just lost one. So there's a huge need for them at that position, and they value it so much. So if I could make a prediction and put him at pick 11, I would do that. And guess what? Now there is with Pick Pool, the mock draft challenge. You can join contests for free. Go to the App Store, download the Pick Pool app. You can make your predictions. You can submit your mock draft to contest against other contestants to win cash prizes and even other prizes, right? Go download the Pick Pool app today and make your predictions and tell me what you think. Okay, but we do have a match here, Ray. We have a match on Will Johnson at 14. So something must have been, electric with Will Johnson. It'd be pretty cool if on draft night he went 14th too. Like we get the triple threat. That'd be pretty sick. But for me, Will Johnson, I have him as my cornerback too in this draft. I think he's a phenomenal football player with unlimited upside, right? Like this is a guy that as a true freshman was breaking out, has played tremendous football for a long time at the college level, showed elite upside. But there's, some lingering injury stuff that, I think was a lot of BS. I don't know if you agree with that. But on top of that, I think maybe there was some character concerns if, he really loved football, if he was willing to put in a high level. And is he as high of an athlete as others maybe think that he, should be or needs to be at the next level? I don't have any of those concerns. So I'm super high on him. Obviously, you have him as a first-round talent. But what do you think of the player overall?
I have him in the same spot, but I have those concerns. And Will Johnson is someone I could be wrong about. And the reason being is, again, he's a corner and he's not running. He's never run a 40. He had this pro day and his shuttle wasn't necessarily very good either. And so now I have more questions. You have a big frame and you came onto the scene early, but how are you trending? You were banged up. You had injuries. The way I see it, your injuries was Michigan going 7-5 or whatever their final record ended up being there. That was the injury to me that I saw. But he hasn't run. That tells me something about what he thinks himself about his speed. Then you did a shuttle and it wasn't great. And you came onto the scene early. Are you someone that just peaked early? You just tapped out when you were a freshman, you were already near your peak. And that's it. And that's what we're going to get. Because I like players on the ascent. I like to see ascension and trajectory. And that's not Will Johnson, rather. It's just starting out at a really high level of play. Yeah, you played very well. And now you have these injuries, you nicked up. There's some questions about your overall athleticism, and you don't necessarily answer those in your private workout or pro day, rather, in Ann Arbor. Those would be the reasons why, again, finish the sentence, right? Fill in the blank. 3 years from now, this player didn't work out because X, because he didn't have the athleticism and he wasn't necessarily trending well when he went into the NFL. That would be the answer to the question.
Let me interject.
With that said,
go ahead, finish your thought.
With that said, I am a big fan of his game, big fan of his tape. He has great tape out there. He's got a big frame and plays cornerback very well and acquits himself very well against even players like Marvin Harrison Jr. So that's why I have him as a first round graded player. So again, I only have 14 of those. He's the 14th. That's a first round graded player for me. So I like the player a lot. There's a lot that I really like. However, there is a clear signal. I have the answer already to the question. If it becomes relevant, this player didn't pan out because of X. That answer is already here. It's just a matter of, will he not pan out or will he still pan out because of all these other great things about him?
So Penny Sewell, Jamar Chase, Micah Parsons, what do those three players have in common?
They didn't play their season. He's not. Don't put him in there.
I'm just saying. I'm saying if like you're like, oh, I have to see the best thing. It's like those guys didn't play their senior seasons because there was COVID going on, so they kind of got a pass for it, right? But if you told me that like this guy Will Johnson was a first round pick talent as a true freshman, and he had to play 2 more years, and there wasn't a good excuse for him to just be like, yeah, I'm going to take some time off and like relax before my rookie season. I think you'd have a totally different opinion of him, right? And I think that like you're falling into that trap a little bit of, like, does he love ball? Is he good enough? Did he peak? It's like, no, this dude just had to play college football for 3 years when he was an NFL talent, a first round NFL talent after being a true freshman. So I think that's what we need to remember about Will Johnson. It's funny because we have very differing opinions, but we both had him at 14, which is wild.
Yeah, he's a first round player. So, okay, fine. That's all I had. We matched. We matched at 14. I hope I have him as a first round player, so I hope he proves me right in that he has success. And I think he will, hence the first round grade. But red flags. In the dating scene, Chris, there's something we call red flags. He's got a couple of red flags. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Should have thought about that before I made you my co-host. Okay, so let's read 10 through 6. I have Armand Membu at 10, the offensive tackle from Missouri. Luther Burden from Missouri at 9, the wide receiver. Cam Ward at 8. We talked about him a little bit. Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State at 7. And Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama at 6.
So at 10 for me, I have Kenneth Grand. This is his rightful spot in any self-respecting big board. I have Josh Simmons, the tackle, at 9 out of Ohio State. At 8, Matthew Golden, the receiver out of Texas. At 7, Tet McMillan, the receiver out of Arizona. And then at 6, Donovan Jackson, the guard out of Ohio State. Chris, tell me why I'm right.
You're right on Josh Simmons, right? I think we're both right on Josh Simmons. We both had him in the pretty similar range. He's offensive tackle 1. I don't think it's close. I don't know how the conversation is still happening about these other guys when Josh Simmons is so freaking talented and is the one that looks and did it at the college level and looks the part. I get Armand Membu. We both had Armand Membu. I want to talk about him too. 10 and 11. Armand Membu is a great talent, insane athlete. Like, I'm super pumped about Armand Membu at the next level. And I think he ends up being a top 10 pick. I actually wouldn't be surprised. I made the prediction. I think he goes at 5 to the Jags. I get that. But Josh Simmons is the one that actually looks like an elite player when he was playing the position. He showed me that he can do that. The injury's scary. I get that. But it's, if you give me the clean bill of health, even if you told me it's going to be a year from now, I'm fine with that. Like, because if I have an offensive tackle need like the Patriots do, or some of the other teams picking top 10, and I have to choose one of these guys, I'm going to go to the one that looks like an elite talent on film, right? And that's Josh Simmons. So you have that right. You have Armand Membu right. You're very wrong on Grant. Let's see what else. Tet McMillan, I think we're both in the same range. I'll get to him pretty soon. But Donovan Jackson, that's aggressive at 6. You need to talk about that because he's a guy that I also have an elite tag on. I had him at 12 just because, again, interior offensive lineman, while I do think the NFL's investing in them, are they investing in them at top 6 picks anymore? I don't know about that. Let's see.
You were just talking about securing bags when talking about Tate Ratledge.
Bags.
Yeah. Donovan Jackson is a phenomenal football player, and he's not being talked about. I see mocks, and he's at 22. And how in the absolute hell are some people realistically stating that 21 players will go above Donovan Jackson? And I'm the guy who says NFL teams don't know how to draft, or some NFL teams anyway don't know how to draft. They're not that good at this. They're just not. Donovan Jackson is a guard who checks every single box. He's just such a clean prospect. You could put him in any scheme, gap, zone, doesn't matter. He's mobile. He's fluid. He's agile. He has a fantastic frame for guard. He's just ready-made. He's almost like a creative player. The only thing that, again, you don't see a ton of, like, even with Tyler Booker, who we have ranked lower than Jackson at guard, Booker has more knockback at the point of attack in his hands and such. That's about it. Everything else, Donovan Jackson is just so clean. I mentioned it during the guard episode. Every 4-ish years, give or take, an NFL team on average will hire a new head coach, and it could be totally different schemes. And, then you have to worry about fit, what have you. Donovan Jackson fits in any coach's scheme, period. And I think if he was able to play at guard full time this past season, instead of having to plug holes at left tackle for Ohio State, I think there would be no question on anybody's mock and anybody's big board that this was a top 10 player at least. He is just so clean. I mean, the intangibles are also there. You see him set up for the team there. To me, this is a future captain in the NFL who's going to start at guard for 8 to 10 years. I would not put him at tackle. It's great that you know that he can in a pinch, in an emergency. Yeah, so could Zach Martin. And now Zach Martin's going into the Hall of Fame as a guard. So don't get cute just because tackle is quote unquote more valuable and Donovan Jackson is very good. Keep him at guard. To me, he's going to be an anchor for whoever drafts him for the next decade. You just set him there and forget it. You don't have to worry about anything. You could hire a coach 3 years from now who's total 180 from what you're currently running on offense, and it won't matter. He could do that just fine. Donovan Jackson fits anywhere for anybody in any scheme, and he's going to be one of the best players on the field every time he takes the field in the NFL. I can't say enough about Donovan Jackson, how good he is as a player.
So it's actually kind of funny because I agree with everything you said, but look at our 6 and 12. Just take a second and do that. So at 6 for the audio listeners, I have Jahad Campbell. 12, Ray has Jahad Campbell. At 12, I have Donovan Jackson. At 6, Ray has Donovan Jackson. I think we're just going to bat for the different guy, but I think we have elite tags on both of them. At least I do. And, I think linebacker is just a little bit more valuable. But I agree with you. Like, if you have a Hall of Fame caliber guard available at 6 and I have offensive line needs, sure, give me them, right? Like, give me them, especially in a draft like this where there's not a lot of elite guys, right? But the conversation that I think we both need to have right now is Luther Burden versus Matthew Golden. So I have Burden at 9. You have Matthew Golden at 8. You have Luther Burden all the way down at 19. I have Matthew Golden actually past my 20, right? So even off of this sheet. And it's an interesting debate, right? Because I think with Golden, you're going very hard with projections. And I think it's just, right? Like projection wise, this guy is getting compared to Stephon Diggs and DJ Moore and players like that as this insane speed threat that has some shiftiness, can run routes, and is being undervalued. And, maybe just didn't show it at the highest level yet, but it's there, right? Whereas Luther Burden, to me, Deebo Samuel kind of mold, but to me is a better route runner than that, can move his body a little bit even better as a route runner than that. I think he's more of a receiver than that. So I like him more, and I like his elite upside, right? Like this guy has burst, this guy has speed, this guy can do a ton with the ball in his hand. So like I have a really hard time putting anybody over Burden, right? Like I even had the thought about Tet and Burden at one point, but like we'll get there. But like how do you justify putting Golden as high as you did when I think there's still so much projection that goes into his rankings?
Because if I could change the projection of some of the passes from Quinn Ewers to Matthew Golden this past season, it wouldn't be any question, because Matthew Golden won so often and didn't get the opportunity to showcase his wins because of the quarterback play that he had to deal with, which again, I think Ewers was really dealing with some injuries here more than was ever let on. I think he is a quality quarterback, honestly, overall, but wasn't or didn't have the ability to show that this year because of what he was dealing with. That's just my read and take on things based off of what I've heard, what I've seen, and just kind of what speaks to me when I watch them play. Golden, while yes, he's the speed guy and it's 4.29 and all that fun stuff. Again, I was dropping hints for months since January when we started this whole series really about, hey, look out for this guy. And then once the combine came, everyone acted surprised. Matthew Golden can do things that the typical run past you speed guys at wide receiver who typically bust, they don't do. He can change speeds in the middle of his route. He can lean into defenders and then explode on the cut with just some nuance and depth that others just don't have, to where that's the only explanation I can come up with why people were surprised at how fast he ran, was because they were kind of lulled to sleep, just like defenders were, with his change of speeds and his routes. I think there's depth and nuance to a lot of his game, and he has great ball skills. I think the one thing that holds him back is he does have to work, I think, at the line of scrimmage on his release package. But if you're playing off or catch on him and not press, I think he could beat you in a myriad of different ways, and you're in a world of hurt. I think he can take the top off of defense. He's going to change the trajectory of an offense wherever he goes because the defense is going to have to account for him. We saw that as the Clemson game went on, how they started shifting coverages his way. It was just egregious, some of the things they were doing to try to stop him in the second half of that game by that point. So Golden to me can really change the complexion of an offense. Burden I like Burden a lot. Like I said, super talented. I just think that extra dimension at all three levels of the defense is something that Matthew Golden has in more spades than someone like a Burden, and that's the difference for me.
Yeah, and do you know how there's some positions where you're very confident about? Like I when I review running backs year over year, like I typically hit like at a very high rate. Tackles, I do the same. Linebackers, another one of mine that I do pretty well. Corner as well. Like those are positions I feel very comfortable. Quarterback's such a crapshoot. It's almost impossible to be good at it, right? Receiver, I'd say I'm about like 75% of the way there. Recent years, I've been doing pretty well hitting on my receivers. I feel very confident about Luther Burden. Like I do. And he's somebody I'm going to the bank, putting him in, cashing in on that check because I really think Luther Burden is a talented player. And I don't feel as strongly about Golden. So I am very excited to see how that one plays out on draft day, but also over the course of the next few years. Because I do think they're both really good football players. So glad we had that discussion. Anybody else that you want to talk about on our list before we go into our top five?
Let's go to the top five. I think it's the moment we've all
Before you do, like and subscribe to the podcast, like and subscribe to the YouTube network. If you are watching on YouTube, hit like, drop a comment, tell us what you like, what you don't, how we can be doing this better. But also go to the App Store and download the All-22 Fantasy Football app today. It is the best place to play fantasy football, full 53-man rosters, offensive linemen, PFF grading, personnel packages, just the complete package of football, fantasy football, just really connecting that, right? Blurring the line between NFL football and fantasy football. So go download the All-22 app today if you haven't yet. Let's do the top five, Ray.
Bam, there it is. Kick us off.
All right, at number 5, I have Teteroa McMillan, the receiver out of Arizona. Ashton Genty at number 4, the running back from Boise State. At number 3, Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. At 2, Travis Hunter, the cornerback from Colorado. And Abdul Carter at number 1, the edge rusher from Penn State. Ray, what do you got here, buddy?
So most of the names are going to be pretty similar. I have Tyler Warren at 5, Mason Graham at 4, Ashton Genty at 3, Abdul Carter's 2 for me, and of course that leaves Travis Hunter at number 1 overall. I think the immediate takeaway here is this is their own tier for the most part. The difference here is in Mason Graham versus Tet McMillan between the two of us. But looking at the top 2, I think you can kind of flip those in any which way. It's just what you value more. So we've had that discussion before. But Tet McMillan at 5, tell me about it, because I was gushing over him in the review, and I obviously love McMillan. I think I have him at 7, so it's not like it's a huge difference here. But having him in the top 5 is almost as if you're bumping him up even another tier above. So go ahead and talk about it.
Sure, yeah. So Tet McMillan, a phenomenal receiver, big-bodied guy. I think that I don't have an elite grade on him, but I think his skills are very rare. Right. So Tet McMillan, being an receiver that can play on the outside with his big body, has speed, is also a very good route runner. That's hard to come by. It's just not every draft that you have the opportunity to take a receiver that has those kind of traits. So I don't think you pass on that if it's a need for you. Right. I don't think he's an elite talent. So I have him a little bit lower than I would if he was an elite receiver. But still, like, to me, it's a no-brainer for a team like the Patriots, the Panthers. It's a team that has that need at receiver, that needs to find help for their quarterback. It's like, this is exactly the kind of guy you want, right? We've seen how good Drake London has been with the Falcons. You've seen how good Michael Pittman has been for the Colts. I think he's probably better than both of them. I have him ranked higher than both of those guys. So to me, it's just like, if you see what those guys can do and you think that this guy's better, it's a no-brainer, right? And Mason Graham, I did want to shout out Mason Graham because you have him at 4. I'm a little bit lower than you on him. I have him at 11. I still think he's a phenomenal player, and I kind of get why you have him here. He's another player that, like, if he's available for me at 10 and I'm drafting at 10, I'm probably going to take him, right? Because I think that the talent is there. It's an important position. I didn't have an elite grade on him. And when I talked about some of those players, right, that were at the end of the first round, early second round, that were good role players, right? Like starting level players, but kind of never going to be that top 5. Mason Graham isn't, in my mind, a top 5 defensive interior at the next level. And I don't know if he has that in his game, but the skill that and the nuance that he plays with is kind of like Colston Loveland to me, which is why I have those two guys close, where it's very, very good, right? Like it's just, he dominates with his skill and technique, but maybe he lacks a little bit in athleticism and size. So I have him a little bit lower, but tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, first off, in All-22 at the very least, I have no doubt this guy is going to grade incredibly well. Whether he ends up being a top 5 defensive interior in the league or not, this guy, like you said, his nuances, fundamentals, his pad level and such, he plays the position so well. This is, I fail to see how he won't grade phenomenally at the very least. So if he falls all the way to 10 to someone in a rookie draft, that is highway robbery if you can get him late in the first. I'll say that. Like you said, the only thing missing from Mason Graham for me is just the physical prowess that other high-end defensive interior players that have been drafted in recent years have. He's not Quinnen Williams physically. That's about it. Everything else, I think he has in spades. All the intangibles and how he plays the game and the tape itself is it's top level. It's absolutely top half of the top 10 worthy. It's just the frame to grow into. If it's not that next level frame in the NFL, does that cap the upside and ceiling to where, okay, he's just the 7th best defensive interior player in the league for 9 years? I'll live with that. I'll take that. That's fine with me.
As long as he's closer to the top 5 than the back of the, like the top 10, I'm good with that as well, because defensive interior, we talk about it. It's like one of those positions where it's pretty heavy at the top, but it falls off pretty quick. So if he's 7, you hope that he's closer to 5 than he is 10, because that difference is pretty big at the NFL level. But interesting too is Tyler Warren and Ashton Jeanty. We have those guys pretty much flipped as well. And I could see it either way, right? Like Ashton Jeanty is a phenomenal football player, and I think he is elite for sure at the position. And I think he's so elite that I have him above a receiver like Ted McMillan. That's a difference maker on a football field. People are saying statistically he's the best thing in college since Barry Sanders, right? Like that's how good of a player we're talking about here. So I have him there. But Tyler Warren to me just does everything that you want for a tight end, right? Brock Bowers, we talked about last year, was the quintessential receiving option at tight end. But what he, did in the receiving game, he kind of lacked in the blocking game. So I had concerns about him as an overall tight end and how well he would grade in PFF grading and in the All-22 platform. I don't have any of those concerns for Tyler Warren. Maybe the receiving game isn't quite as high as Brock Bowers, especially after the catch, right? But I saw him break tackles. I saw him run routes. I saw him high point the ball as a receiver. I saw him do all those things. But I also saw him pancaking guys on the line of scrimmage. I saw him blocking true defensive ends and linebackers like well. I just have no concerns, right? And then when you're comparing him to Jeanty, do I want the tight ends last 10 to 15 years? Some of them reach their stride at year 10, right? So like you're talking about a 10 to 15 year player at tight end versus running backs. If they make their second contract, if they perform well on their second contract, you're kind of lucky, right? So I think like high end, both of these positions, it's like you get 15 years out of a tight end or you get 8 good years from a running back. Give me the 15 years for the tight end if they have similar weights, right? So that's kind of how I made that decision.
I'll just speak to the longevity piece for Jeanty, which is on top of mind for a lot of people when it comes to drafting a running back highly. And Ashton Jeanty has a lot of carries in 2024 for Boise State, and does he come with a lot of mileage? But we broke it down, and when you watch Ashton Jeanty, I'm less concerned about that because of the way he runs the football, his contact balance and his center of gravity. He bounces off attacks. He doesn't take many direct hits as a ball carrier to where those are really sort of impacting you as body blows. As a runner, he doesn't take on those shots. He protects himself. He has the nice shoulder lean and the compact frame and the balance to just bounce off of a lot of non-fundamental tackles, which really extends his lifespan as a player. So yes, he might have a lot of carries in number, but as far as true hits taken and wear and tear, I'm not as concerned about that as maybe some others are because of his running style and how he runs the football, which is part of what makes him so fantastic as a player.
And to be completely honest on Tyler Warren, if this was truly positionally agnostic, which mine is not, I might have him at number one. And the reason being, right, as we get into Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, which you mentioned before, you could switch them either way, and I think it's fine. We just had to make a decision, and that's kind of the decisions that we ended up with. Travis Hunter, to me, amazing football player, right? Some of the most special football we've ever watched. But he's kind of small. He's probably 25 pounds lighter than the top corners that I would compare him to. He's probably 20 pounds lighter than the receivers I would want him to compare with. And that's a concern for me, right? But I don't have any concerns about his athleticism. I think he's a phenomenal guy, right? Best cornerback we've ever watched. Top 5 receiver, right? With what we think he could be. But is he small, and is there going to be concerns with injuries throughout his career? I don't have those concerns with Tyler Warren, right? And then when we go to Abdul Carter, kind of a similar conversation where in his 1 year of playing edge rusher at Penn State, we dealt with a myriad of injuries throughout the year. One of them a shoulder that's now continuing forward, and one on his leg that's also continuing forward, right? That, you know, at the end of the day, am I super confident that he's going to have a clean bill of health by the start of his rookie season? And even if he does, am I concerned that this is a guy that just isn't going to be able to take as many reps as I need him to take as a number 1 overall pick, right? So I definitely have concerns with Carter and Hunter being the top guys on this board, which is why I think Tennessee is sitting there going, if there's going to be concerns with anyone, I guess I'm going quarterback, right? Which I wouldn't do, but I kind of start to understand that conversation.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't do that, but I understand the question mark for each of these players, because you could always flip it and say, yeah, I get that, but also to the upside, this is Abdul Carter's first year playing edge in college. He was a linebacker for 2 years before this, and look at the impact he made. He was on one arm in the playoffs in college football and was still the best player on the field between 2 playoff teams playing for the national championship. Okay, just keep that in mind with one arm. So there's that. And then with Hunter, it's obviously, okay, is he playing 2 positions, or is he going to focus on one? And if he does focus on one, or is primarily one in a package receiver, for example, then does a lighter load, because he averaged over 100 snaps per game in college. If he's playing 70 in the NFL, is he able to carry a bit more weight and give a bit more at 100% in each rep than maybe he was able to in college? So there's, for all these arguments, there's always still even more. And I think that's what makes all these players sort of in the top tier here, is that for any concern that you do have, you can flip the conversation and say, well, here's a reason why they may be even better than what we've seen so far. And that applies to all these guys. So it's a flavor of ice cream thing. But man, I love Tyler Warren, obviously. It's still pretty hard for me to put him above a generational corner and receiver, and in my opinion, the best edge prospect we've seen since Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. So again, for all the flack that this draft class gets, I think the very top, it is really good. If you just strip away position value, because I feel like too many people cavalierly rate draft classes based off of their perception of quarterback at the top of the class, and not just the overall just elite level of play at any given position at the top. This class has it in spades. It's just not necessarily at quarterback, which gets the headlines.
Couldn't agree with you more. And if I had to go through them, right? Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Tyler Warren, Ashton Genty. Go to the next page, back to the next page if you can, without too much difficulty. Yeah, Jahad Campbell. So that's 5. I would give Donovan Jackson, that's 6. That's probably where it ends. But you're telling me 6 players I have an elite tag on in any year. That's a good number. I think you're just down on it because, again, one plays guard, one plays linebacker, one plays corner, one plays running back, and one plays tight end, right? There's only the edge rusher in the elite position group. So, you know, I understand that concern, but everybody, I think it's time we hang this up. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, and have a great day.
Go.